And I would like to give the word to László Horváth, who is an assistant professor at the Institute of Education at the Faculty of Education and Psychology at ELTE, and he will introduce his research about the teaching mobility and its quality aspects.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to present the results of the research on Teach It Erasmus Plus project, which is linked to the development of the quality and impact tool. We worked in a team on this research project. I will introduce the participants at the end of the presentation. And I don't want to go into much details regarding the literature background of the project because these elements were highlighted by previous presenters, and of course those who are here, you are interested in internationalization. I just put here in the slide the working definition that we have used in our research, what we understand by internationalization, the integrating an international and intercultural or global dimension to the purpose of and functions and delivery of post-secondary education. And of course, as you may all know and experience, internationalization agenda is becoming a more strategic approach in higher education institutions, and mobility is maybe the most visible facet of internationalization agendas. Although in research, staff mobility is given less focus in empirical research, while the strategic approach to this mobility has clear advantages for research, for teaching, and for professional development of academics as well. Previous research focused on input and output indicators of staff mobility, and they lacked important contextual and process elements. Therefore, we focused on these areas as well in our research. The research itself was planned as a mixed methods research, where we combined qualitative and quantitative tools. And it was approved by the Research Ethics Board of the Eötvös University. As Krista mentioned, we had this focus group which served as a preliminary research for our questionnaire, and we supplemented it by conducting, with the help of the partners, semi-structured interviews in order to explore the possible motivational factors, hindering factors, possible results of teaching mobilities. And based on these results, we compiled a questionnaire which we sent out to European higher education institutions, a large-scale survey where we supplemented it with contextual data and personal aspects, the factors related to specific mobility experience. Altogether, we had more than 700 respondents. And what is important regarding our sample, we also asked those academics who haven't been on a teaching mobility at the time of the completion of the questionnaire. So we were able to compare the two groups, those who have been on a teaching mobility and those who have been haven't been on a teaching mobility. We followed up the results of the survey with, again, semi-structured post-interviews in order to understand better the results. And based on these elements, we have compiled the quality and impact tool, which is also available on the website of the project. During the preliminary research in the focus group, we worked with a design methodology, namely creating user personas, mock persons that we could send on an imaginary teaching mobility. We use this to put ourselves in the shoes of different academic actors and try to imagine what would their mobility look like. And we use this to uncover possible motivational or hindering factors, explore the possibilities of the personality impacting the journey. And of course, with the user persona, we as we sent them on the imaginary mobility in the workshop, we come up with this customer journey mapping exercise where we draw up the whole journey, starting from their initial plans to the realization of the mobility and closing the experience, how it would look like from the academics point of view. This helped us a lot to understand how teaching mobility works. As you can see here, our sample is quite balanced regarding the disciplines, although regarding countries, of course, maybe from our perspective, the Hungarian respondents were overrepresented, but we have a nice coverage from other countries as well. And as I have mentioned, it is very important that we have nearly 70% of the participants who have been on teaching mobility, but we have a group around 30% that haven't been on teaching mobility. So we were able to compare these two groups in terms of hindering factors, for example. Highlighting the most important results of the research, here you can see the combined factors that we have came up via an exploratory factor analysis regarding the motivational factors and hindering factors. There are many items in the questionnaire. We combined them based on the results to these groups. So you can see them as the main important motivational and hindering factors that respondents reported regarding their teaching mobility experience. And we have analyzed these elements. You can see here the motivation for participating in a teaching mobility. This was only asked for those who have been on a teaching mobility and in relation to one of their specific teaching mobility experience. So not in general, but a specific experience they have chosen to focus on. On the top, you can see the top 3 motivational elements that was not very important in the minds of the respondents. Expectation from the organization, or encouragement from the leadership, or a recommendation from a colleague. So it seems that those who have answered our questionnaire are mainly motivated by internal factors, so not by these organizational issues or peer pressure. On the other hand, the most important motivational factors for them was, as you can see, these internal issues, that they wanted to learn more about the research projects of the host institution, the possible opportunities for joint projects, and the need to learn about the educational practices at the host institution. As you can see here, there is a mix of motivation regarding educational aspects, but there is a huge element of research-oriented needs for a teaching mobility as well. This highlights the importance of mixing these two missions, education and research, together in the life of academics. Let's see the other side, the hindering factors. You can see here as the comparison of the two groups who have been on a teaching mobility and those who have not been in a teaching mobility. And the hindering factors here, as you can see, are much higher for those who haven't been on a teaching mobility. The most prominent ones are hindering factors regarding lack of connections, communication, reputation. This is in line with Vice Rector's introductory speech that maybe young academics who are not well embedded in the profession find harder to find connections. Other important factors are the organization issues, so the administrative burden behind organizing the mobility, as the perception of the respondents, of course. And on the other hand, as you can see that those who have already been on a teaching mobility, so who have experienced in reality the teaching mobility, they reported much lower percentages of these hindering factors. So we can conclude that going on a teaching mobility can lower these fears that you can see here. And in the end, it was one of the most important predictors of return intention or the intention to go on a teaching mobility. So if you went for one, then it is likely that you will want to go for more. we looked on the specific aspects of what factors influence the intention to go on mobility, and of course the satisfaction regarding the event. So it was also an important point from the quality perspective. Regarding the intention, whether or not they want to go on mobility, respondents stated that their motivation to develop in a foreign language or pedagogical aspects, their work engagement, like dedication to their work, was very important predictor. And of course, if there was a hindering factor present, namely that they do not felt that teaching mobility is an important part of their career development, then it had a negative aspect on the intention to go on mobility. And as I mentioned before, the existence of a previous any international experience was a positive element influencing their intention to go on a teaching mobility. Regarding the other side of the slide, the satisfaction with the experience, those who consider mobility as not an important tool in their work reported a lower level of satisfaction with the experience. But from a more positive note, those who have reported higher levels of self-efficacy and who reported higher levels of useful feedback from students rated their mobility experience more satisfactory. So these two elements are very important in the perception of the respondents regarding a quality mobility experience: self-efficacy and useful feedback from students. We also highlighted the most important results of teaching mobilities. We had a long list of items, an inventory, so to say, stemming from the interviews on the possible outcomes and results of teaching mobilities. And here you can see the top 5 one that was reported the most important results by respondents. And you can see here elements that are related to networking. So my professional network has expanded. There is also elements that are regarding learning. So I got to know the culture of the educational system and the operation of a higher education institution, so a foreign country. I got to know the work culture of another organization. These are very important possible results as well. And of course, these elements that are left, that respondents felt they became more motivated, that the mobility experience inspired them, and that they expanded their professional overview, is also an important outcome of their mobility experience. We also put together these items into educational, research, organizational, and professional development groups that could characterize these results. And we looked at the specific influencing factors for these 4 areas. So results that connects to education or research or professional development or organizational issues. And as you can see here, we have 3 elements that influences all 4 possible results. These are the feedback from students, the previous international experience, and if the respondents had a motivation connected to research opportunities. So these are the most important influencing factors that influence all 4 kinds of possible results of teaching mobilities. And all areas has additional influencing factors that only influences that particular kind of results. For example, if you want to focus on enhancing the teaching mobility results regarding the educational area, then the motivation to learn, like languages, the pedagogical methods, and if there is an expectation or urge from the leaders or from the organizational side, then it contributes to a higher level of results regarding the educational aspects. On the other hand, let's see, for example, the organizational aspects. So if you want to have results on the organizational level, then the additional factors you can see here: self-efficacy of the respondents, again, the expectation and urge from the leadership or from the organizational side can be seen as positive influences to organizational results. And a negative element, this hindering factor, if respondents feel that they lack competence, for example, pedagogical competence and motivation to go on a teaching mobility, then it would lower the results on the organizational levels. And also let me highlight that it is a very important element. I haven't focused on that in the presentation, but we also gathered data regarding the strategic aspects of internationalization. And it seemed that if the organizational strategy is focusing on internationalization, so there is an embeddedness of the internationalization strategy, then it contributes to the respondents' results regarding the research field. So those who have a well-embedded internationalization strategy reported more results on the research area. And based on these results, we have compiled this quality and impact tool for teaching mobility assessment on two levels, the institutional level and the individual level. The institutional level mainly consists of elements from the survey. So, for example, this mobility results inventory that I have mentioned, which was part of the questionnaire, and also the motivation and hindering factors. These can be used, for example, as quality assurance tools or guidelines for interviews in your organizations to gather data regarding the status quo of teaching mobility. For the academics perspective, and this is an area where we put efforts regarding our online training that Krista mentioned, we have several elements that are related to pedagogical aspects, planning your course, getting to know your students, how to get meaningful feedback from students. And these bulleted elements I can see here denotes the new elements that will be added to this existing quality and impact tool based on the training that we had, which you can see here. This was a 4-module training, an online training in the Zoom platform. The focus was how to enhance the teaching mobility experience. And first we presented the results that I have done so now as well. We covered the issues of designing the quality teaching mobility experience. We experimented with these user personas and customer journey mapping. We focused on pedagogical aspects and other elements that could make for a quality teaching mobility, and there we tried out new tools that I have mentioned before, this academic professional development plan, for example. As you can see, the training was quite populous, so we had many participants, and it was a challenge itself, not even considering just the amount of participants, but that it was in an online setting. And many of them successfully completed all 4 modules, completed the additional tasks as asynchronous learning elements, and by the end received a certification. And I was happy to see that during this conference we have some participants from the training as well. So it's good to see you again. So in short, these are the main elements of the research that was the background for this project. And the other members of the research team was Dr. Zsófia Hangyál, Georgina Kassa, and Dora Cirfus from ELTE side. Thank you very much for your attention, and if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer in due time.